In the heart of the vast African continent, among the tall palm trees and dense jungle, is the Kimba tribe. This tribe was famous for its strong community and rich traditions. The head of the tribe was the old chief Rudin, a wise and respected man whose word was law for everyone. Chief Rudin's son, Njongo, was known for his ambitious and pragmatic nature. From an early age, he demonstrated an aptitude for management, but his ambitions went far beyond tribal leadership. Njongo dreamed of the enormous wealth and power that could be gained by becoming a chief, and he was willing to go to any lengths to achieve it. One morning, as the sun was just beginning to rise above the horizon, Njongo learned of the disturbing news. His father, Chief Rudin, was lying in bed with an unexplained illness that was getting worse every day. The tribal healers were powerless against this mysterious illness, and the mood in the village became gloomy. Njongo came to his father, trying to look steady and calm. He asked about his condition, but Chief Rudin just sighed heavily and answered, "Njongo, you have always been my pride, but now I fear that my days are numbered. I leave you with a great responsibility." Njongo, although he took these words with understanding, realized that this could be his chance. The tribe was waiting for the old chief to hand over power to a new leader, and Njongo could not let this opportunity pass him by. If Chief Rudin died, Njongo would become the new head of the tribe. But he was more concerned about the extraordinary wealth he would inherit. Chief Rudin had the secret of a great treasure trove that was legendary. This wealth could provide Njongo with a remarkable increase in status among the tribes. Njongo began to weave his web of intrigue. As his father gradually weakened, Njongo visited him more often, taking an undue interest in his father's treatment and condition. But his real intentions were quite different. He used this time to scrutinize every medical item, every doctor, and even ministers who might know about his father's condition. Every day, his plans became clearer. Njongo began to explore ways to influence his father's illness to finally reach a critical point, while disguising his intentions as a caring son. And so, over the course of several days, Njongo watched his father's chances of survival diminish. He began to act with increasing determination, confident that his plan would work. At night, when the village was already asleep, Njongo sat by the fire and thought about the future. The fire danced on his face, reflecting his inner conflict and struggle. He knew that his ambition and lust for power could lead to disaster, but he was willing to risk everything to achieve his goal. Meanwhile, in the shadows, a new chapter in the history of the Kimba tribe was beginning, one that would change it forever. With each passing day, Chief Rudin's illness became more serious. The people of the tribe watched their wise leader gradually weaken, and anxiety filled their hearts. While the tribe was consumed by anxiety, Njongo seemed to try to maintain calm, showing every sign of caring and hope for his father's recovery. At night, when everyone else was sleeping, Njongo stayed in the darkness of his room, going through all the documents and records relating to the tribe's heritage and wealth. He knew that his father, although old and sick, had left behind secrets that could be the key to his big dream. However, even the best-laid plans can meet unforeseen obstacles. One night, Njongo received an unexpected visit from the tribe's old soothsayer, Ubar. He was famous for his ability to predict the future through magical rituals and was considered the wisest among the tribe. Ubara looked in on Njongo as he prepared for bed. The soothsayer's face was calm, but his eyes reflected great anxiety. "I saw a sign," said Ubara, his voice quiet and mystical. "Something dark is coming to the Kimba tribe, something that could change the fate of us all." Njongo braced himself for the important words, trying to hide his anxiety under a mask of calm. "What is this sign?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "I saw a shadow growing over our lands. It brings with it death and destruction. We must be careful not to fall under its influence." "You have to be prepared for anything," said Ubara. Njongo realized that this warning could be both a sign of danger and an attempt to give him something to think about, but he decided not to stop. After telling the soothsayer that everything would be fine, he left him, intending to check on his father's secrets. When Njongo was alone, he immersed himself in the documents again. But this time, he noticed an ancient manuscript that had not previously attracted him. It was an old book written in languages that only a few old sages could understand. It described tribal wealth as well as ways to protect secrets. It was here that Njongo came across something interesting, a description of the secret place where the tribe's greatest wealth was kept. The description was brief, but Njongo realized that it could be the key to his success. He recalled how his father had once mentioned this place, but never told him its exact location. In the morning, Njongo tried to present himself as a concerned son, trying to take care of his father. He organized rituals and prayers for Chief Ruden's speedy recovery, but secretly continued his plans for the location of the wealth. Gradually, Chief Ruden's illness was approaching a critical stage. Njongo, observing everything that was happening around him, decided to spend his night in search of that very secret place. And, no matter how risky it was, he knew that his plan was already approaching its fatal conclusion. Meanwhile, rumors were spreading in the Kimba tribe that Njongo might be involved in his father's growing illness, but no one had enough evidence to accuse him. Chief Rudane's death was getting closer, and Njongo was preparing for the next step in his insidious plan. After Njongo found the secret manuscript, his plans began to gain momentum. He checked every line, every symbol, trying to extract every possible detail from the text. Night after night, he spent time in the dark, illuminating the ancient book with the light of a candle. The tribe's activities continued, but Njongo became skillful at hiding his true identity under a mask of piety. One morning, when the sun was already rising above the horizon, Njongo set out to find the secret place described in the manuscript. According to the description, this place was buried somewhere in the deep jungle, far from the usual paths of the tribe. Njongo knew it would be a difficult journey, but his determination was unwavering. The path through the jungle was difficult. Njongo walked through dense undergrowth, crossed several small rivers, and avoided dangerous traps. He suspected that the secret place might have been protected by nature or even by magical barriers that had been set up to keep the tribe's wealth from prying eyes. When he finally reached what he thought was the specified location, Njongo came across an ancient entrance disguised by natural materials. With a deep breath, he began to clear the entrance of vegetation and stones, trying to reveal what might be inside. The entrance was partially covered with earth, and Njongo felt his heart flutter with excitement. He had to work hard to free it from the sand and stones. As soon as he was able to open the entrance, he saw the darkness that hid inside. Summoning all his courage, Njongo went inside. The darkness inside was hard to break. He used a torch to light the way, and his eyes adapted to the dim light. Passing through a narrow corridor, he came across the first room, where the tribe's treasures were hidden. Huge chests of gold, gems, and rare artifacts took up most of the space. Njongo felt his heart beat faster, but he knew there was more. In the very center of the room, Njongo discovered another large stone slab. After much effort and manipulation, he was able to open this slab, revealing a new entrance to the dungeon. The interior was filled with ancient texts and records explaining how to use wealth to secure power and influence. Njongo pulled out several important documents and artifacts that he hoped could help him with his plans. But suddenly, he heard an unusual noise behind him. He quickly turned around, trying to figure out what it could be. It turned out that part of the wall had started moving again. Njongo realized that the place he had found might not be as simple as he thought. The noise and movement indicated that the place was equipped to self-destruct to protect the treasure from theft. As Njongo tried to get to the exit, he encountered a new danger: the mechanisms that began to activate. The stone blocks began to shift, and everything around him began to shake. Njongo tried to find a way out, but his mental abilities were at their limit. Luckily, after some minutes of struggle, he found a way out and emerged from the darkness of the dungeon, reaching the surface. He was exhausted and dirty, but with important finds that could secure his plans. Njongo returned to his tribe, where his father was still alive but weak. He knew that the time for the last step was approaching. The Kimba tribe had already begun to doubt Chief Ruden's health, and Njongo would soon have to show that he was worthy of becoming the new leader of the tribe. But in the back of his mind, he was growing afraid that his schemes might not be as successful as he had planned. The story he was writing was not yet complete, and new difficulties and unexpected obstacles awaited him. As time went on, Chief Ruden's condition deteriorated. The disease that was tearing his body apart left no hope for recovery. The Kimba tribe was desperate, and even the most experienced doctors could do nothing. The situation was becoming more and more critical, and all the pressure was now on Njongo's shoulders. One evening, as the light of the setting sun cast a golden glow across the jungle, Njongo went to his father's house to spend one last night with him. He knew that this moment could be critical to the realization of his plan. With a candle in hand and his lips pursed, he approached the bedside of Chief Ruden, who was breathing heavily. "Father, I'm here," Njongo said, trying to keep his voice calm. Chief Ruden slowly opened his eyes and looked at his son, his eyes reflecting a mixture of anxiety and fatigue. "Njongo, I don't have the strength anymore. My illness is progressing, and I can feel that my days are numbered. But there is one thing I want to talk to you about," the old chief said heavily. "What is it, father?" Njongo asked, trying to keep his tone casual. Chief Ruden gathered all his will and continued. "You know about our traditions and heritage. I trust you, and I know you will be a worthy leader of the tribe. But there is one thing I have not yet told you. On the edge of our land, in a hidden cave, there is an ancient amulet that ensures peace and prosperity for our tribe. When I leave, you must protect it, for it holds the key to our future." Njongo listened to his father's every word, but his mind was already racing toward the riches he had found in the dungeon. Now he was forced to balance his duty and ambition. "I understand, father. I will do everything in my power to ensure the future of our tribe," Njongo replied, trying to hide his inner turmoil. Chief Ruden nodded weakly and tried to smile. It was a sad and heavy smile, but there was faith in his eyes. Then he closed his eyes and fell into a sleep that no longer had a chance of becoming peaceful. Njongo stayed with him until late at night, noting his father's every breath. As night descended on the village, Njongo left his father's room and headed for his tent. He knew that his plan was nearing completion. However, despite his determination, he felt that it was weighing on his soul. When he returned to his tent, he found the ancient manuscript and looked at it again. It turned out that the tribe's treasures were not just material. They also included rites and rituals that were essential to their cultural heritage. During the night, Njongo thought about how his actions could affect the tribe. He realized that his decisions and actions could not only affect his own life, but also the fate of the entire tribe. However, his greed and ambition were so strong that he could not stop. Meanwhile, a small group of tribesmen began to notice that Njongo was becoming increasingly mysterious and distant. Rumors of his strange behavior began to spread, and soon even the most senior members of the tribe began to question his intentions. But Njongo continued to play his role, trying to maintain the outward peace. The morning brought new news. Chief Ruden was on the verge of leaving, and the tribe began to prepare for his farewell. It was a moment of truth for Njongo. He had to be ready for the days ahead, when responsibility for the tribe and its wealth would fall on his shoulders. The evening of confession was over, and Njongo felt that his plan was ready for the final act. He was ready for the final test, but the dark shadow of his ambition had already begun to cloud his heart. After the death of Chief Ruden, the Kimba tribe was consumed with deep sadness. The loss of their leader was a blow to everyone, and every member of the tribe felt the weight of the loss. However, Njongo was the only one who did not feel grief. For him, it was a moment to focus on his plan. The official funeral rituals lasted several days. Njongo took on the role of leading the rituals, demonstrating his willingness to take responsibility for the tribe. His aspirations and ambitions became even more visible, and even the old chief's most ardent supporters began to notice the change. On the day Njongo officially took office as the new chief, he gathered the tribe around a large fire. People came to witness this important moment. The spotlight was on Njongo, who spoke words of promise and assured the tribe of his decision to preserve their heritage. "I accept this responsibility with respect and devotion," Njongo said, looking at the tribe gathered before him. "We will preserve our traditions and wealth. Our tribe will prosper under my leadership." After the speech, Njongo felt deeply satisfied that his plans were coming to fruition. But the peace of his mind did not last long. As soon as the rituals were over, he went to a secret place in the dungeon to make final preparations for the realization of his plans. While Njongo was planning, the old soothsayers and tribal elders began to notice that his behavior had become even more mysterious and cryptic. They decided to conduct their own investigation and turned to Ubara, an old soothsayer who had previously warned Njongo of dangers. When Ubara learned of the changes, he went to the temple to call on the spirits of the tribe. He was performing a ritual that he hoped would allow him to find out what was really happening to Njongo. The tribal spirits showed him images of a dark shadow spreading across the Kimba lands and voices warning of danger. "You have to find out the truth," Ubara said to himself. "Our tribe is in danger, and I can't just let it go." Meanwhile, Njongo, using documents from the dungeon, began planning the distribution of wealth. He decided not only to use them to strengthen his authority, but also to buy the loyalty of the tribe. He hoped that by using gold and precious stones, he could secure absolute power and support. Njongo also planned to distribute some of the wealth to influential tribal members, hoping to gain their loyalty and secure his position. He realized that this could help him achieve his goal, but it could also cause new problems. However, Ubara, who launched an investigation, discovered important information that Njongo was trying to change his position and concentrate more power in his hands. He realized that Njongo's actions could have serious consequences for the tribe. Ubara decided to share this information with the elders to prevent a possible threat. He hoped that their wisdom and experience would help stop Njongo, but time was running out. Everyone was beginning to realize that Njongo was preparing for a great evil that could destroy their peace and tranquility. In the meantime, Njongo continued his work, trying to secure his power and ignoring the fact that his secrets were beginning to be revealed. His dreams of power and wealth had become more important than any moral qualms, and he was preparing for the final solution. After Njongo completed the distribution of wealth among influential tribal members, he found that his plan was beginning to come to fruition. New allies and supporters pledged their loyalty, and Njongo felt his power was becoming more and more unshakable. However, his successes did not go unnoticed. Ubara, along with a group of elders, continued his investigation. He discovered that Njongo had not only misappropriated some of the tribal wealth, but was actively distributing it among his most loyal supporters to cement his power. The concern of Ubara and the elders grew, and they decided to take action to stop Njongo. One of the elders, Nazima, was particularly concerned about Njongo's actions. She gathered a small support group and traveled to the temple to examine ancient records and knowledge that could help her identify and confront the threat. Nazima discovered that the manuscripts Njongo had found not only gave him access to wealth, but also contained knowledge of magical rituals that could change the balance of power in the tribe. Nazima found a record that described a ritual that could neutralize the magical powers emanating from the amulet. It was a complicated rite that required a great deal of knowledge and determination, but it could help prevent the disaster that Njongo was planning. Nazima decided that she needed to find a way to perform this ritual to stop Njongo and save the tribe. As Nazima and the elders prepared for the ritual, Njongo continued with his plans. He had prepared his first major public event as the new chief, a huge festival at which he hoped to showcase his new power and demonstrate his accomplishments. This festival was to be a symbol of his success and to secure the tribe's support for years to come. At the festival, Njongo appeared in luxurious clothes decorated with precious stones, that he had obtained thanks to the wealth of the tribe. People were amazed by his appearance and display. The whole festival was filled with festivities, dancing, and music. But amidst all the fun, some tribal members began to notice strange details, mysterious signals and signs that they suspected might be related to Njongo rituals. Njongo traveled to the temple to perform a ritual she had found in ancient records. She knew that time was running out and that she needed to act quickly to save her tribe. For several days, she prepared everything she needed for the ritual, working out the final details and coordinating with supportive tribal members. Meanwhile, Njongo was pleased with the results of the festival and felt that his power was consolidated. He decided to take his ambitions one step further. During his next public event, he planned to announce new laws and reforms that would strengthen his control over the tribe. He was prepared for the fact that his plan might be perceived differently, but he was confident of his victory. Nevertheless, a new threat was on the horizon. Njongo's ritual could destroy all of Njongo's plans, and once she completed it, the balance of power in the tribe could change dramatically. Njongo, unaware of the ritual, continued to move confidently toward his goals, while the shadow of a threat loomed over his plans. The explosive success of the festival woke up the Kimba tribe. Njongo was confident of his victory. Under the cover of night, he planned new changes to strengthen his position as chief. He planned new laws that would change traditional practices, allowing him to concentrate even more power in his hands. Njongo, along with several elders, was finalizing preparations for a ritual that could save the tribe. Her group worked in secret, knowing that Njongo must not learn of their intentions. They carefully performed all the rituals and preparations, which required a lot of attention and effort. The ritual was planned to take place northwest of the village, in a place that had special significance for the tribe. It was a place where ancestral spirits were believed to communicate with the living. Njongo knew that this was the place where she could perform the ritual in a way that would neutralize the magical powers that Njongo was using to consolidate his power. In the meantime, Njongo organized a new public event at which he planned to announce his new laws and reforms. All tribal members were invited, and Njongo was eager to impress them with a show of his power and wisdom. His plan was to make the most of the event to reinforce his new rules and secure the tribe's support. As soon as Njongo arrived at the venue, Njongo and her group began the ritual. It was an elaborate and demanding event that included sacrifices, chanting, and prayers to the spirits. Njongo prayed for help from the ancestors and for protection of the tribe from the darkness that Njongo brought. Her prayers were imbued with anxiety and hope that the spirits would hear her cry for help. During the ritual, a small flock of birds appeared and began to circle the site of the ceremony. This sign was seen as confirmation from the spirits that the ritual was on the right track. Njongo felt that the spirits' powers were beginning to work, and this gave her even more confidence in the success of their plan. However, when Njongo concluded his speech at the event, he noticed that the atmosphere among the tribal members was a bit tense. Someone in the audience said that not everyone was happy with the new changes. Njongo sensed that something might be going wrong and decided to check the situation. Meanwhile, in the center of the ritual, Njongo felt the spirit's powers growing stronger. She realized that Njongo's magical powers could be neutralized, and this could change things for the better for the tribe. Her success, however, depended on her being able to complete the ritual before Njongo discovered that something was going wrong. If the ritual is completed successfully, the tribe will be saved from the threat posed by Njongo. If not, the tribe could be on the brink of destruction. Tensions were rising, and both sides were preparing for a decisive battle that would determine the future of the Kimba tribe. As Njongo led his tribal people in the new laws, the tension in the air was almost palpable. He was unaware of what was happening in another part of the tribe, where Njongo and the elders were performing a ritual that was crucial to their future. The ritual was in full swing. Njongo could feel the spirit forces beginning to dominate the dark magical powers of Njongo. She knew that this was a crucial moment, and all her energy and prayers were directed to making the ritual a success. Her hands and voice vibrated with energy as she recited the final incantations. Nazima's face, however, was a look of worry. She knew that Njongo might detect that something was going wrong, and that could have serious consequences. At the event, Njongo began to notice increased tension among the tribal members. The real shock came when one of his most loyal allies, a young warrior named Mabara, approached him and whispered that some of the people were refusing to support the new laws. Mabara said that some tribal members had begun to doubt Njongo's intentions and were even discussing the possibility of returning to the old traditions. Njongo decided to act decisively. He traveled to one of the greatest elders who had access to sacred texts and ancient knowledge to seek advice. When he arrived at the elder's house, Njongo noticed that he looked very anxious and reluctant to talk about rituals and magical powers. Njongo decided to act, and during his investigation in secret, his accomplices discovered some evidence that Nazima's ritual could indeed affect magical powers. With each passing minute, Njongo became more and more enraged, realizing that his plans could be ruined. Meanwhile, Nazima completed the ritual. She felt that Njongo's magical powers had been destroyed, and this gave her peace of mind. She hoped that the tribe would be saved from the danger that Njongo posed. Nazima knew that the ritual could change a lot of things, but she was also aware that not all the effects would be immediate. Njongo, realizing that his forces no longer had the same influence as before, decided to act at the last minute. He sent his men to the temple, where he hoped he could confirm his claims and secure his position. During the festivities that followed the ritual, the Kimba tribe gathered to discuss the new laws and their future. Njongo, in the absence of his magical support, tried to regain his influence through words and promises. But on this night, when the sky was covered with stars, he realized that his power was no longer as unshakable as it had been. Nazima and the elders used this moment to gather the tribe and announce the new rules and changes made possible by the ritual. The tribe greeted them with joy and hope for a new future of stability and peace. Njongo, disillusioned and having lost his power, was forced to leave the tribe. He left Kimba, knowing that his ambitions and his dark plans had been destroyed. The tribe returned to old traditions and new beginnings, full of hope for a better future. Njongo, expelled and overthrown, became a symbol of how greed and cruelty can destroy everything that has been built. But the Kimba tribe found a new path and restored its unity, learning from mistakes and gaining confidence in its ability to withstand the darkness. And so, under a starry sky, the Kimba tribe welcomed a new beginning, full of hope and faith that they would be able to overcome any challenges ahead.